The champagne glass felt cold in my hand as I watched Reed whisper something to his new girlfriend. My father's hand gripped my shoulder, but his voice was ice. "You're making a scene, Cora. Reed is the face of this company now. Just take your coat and leave before we have to call the police." I looked at the man who raised me, then at my ex-husband smirking beside the woman who used to be my bridesmaid. The gala invitation hadn't been a peace offering. It was a trap to show 200 investors that I'd been replaced. Security moved closer and I didn't fight. I just clutched the folded document in my purse tighter and walked toward the rain-soaked exit of the hotel I'd built with my own exhausted hands. My name is Cora Whitaker, and for 10 years, I was the backbone of Whitaker International while Reed was just the smile in expensive suits. Everyone thought the divorce made me powerless. They were wrong. As I stood outside the grand entrance, rain soaking through my designer dress, I pulled out the document I'd been carrying like a secret weapon. The property deed. The original one. My father and Reed had forgotten something crucial in their rush to erase me. The ground they stood on, the foundation of their empire, didn't belong to the corporation. It belonged to me, filed under my maiden name before I ever said, "I do." I smiled at the glowing windows above and whispered, "Game on." I remembered those early years like yesterday. While Reed played golf with men he called investors, I worked 20-hour days in a cramped office that smelled like coffee and ambition. I designed every floor plan, negotiated every contract, stayed up until dawn fixing problems Reed created during his liquid lunches. He'd come home smelling like whiskey and tell me I worried too much. "You're too intense, Cora," he'd say, kissing my forehead like I was a child. "Let me handle the people part." But handling people meant spending company money on bottle service while I begged banks for loans. The hotels succeeded because I refused to sleep. They loved Reed because I made sure he never had to work hard enough to fail. The prenup had seemed fair at the time. Reed's lawyer said it protected both of us. But last month, my attorney discovered the truth buried in the fine print. The document was designed to strip me of my shares if the marriage ended, regardless of who filed. Reed had planned my exit before we'd even finished our vows. Every signature I'd trusted had been a trap. When I confronted him, he'd laughed. "You really thought you'd keep everything. Cora, you were always better at working than thinking." That sentence burned in my chest for weeks. But anger was useful, made me dig deeper. And what I found in the city records office changed everything. The flagship hotel property had never been transferred to corporate ownership. It was still mine. I went to my mother's house hoping for shelter and maybe some comfort. Opal opened the door wearing the pearl necklace Reed bought her for Christmas. "Sweetheart, you look terrible," she said, but she didn't move aside to let me in. I asked if I could stay for a few nights. She twisted the pearls between her fingers. "Cora, I can't take sides. Reed's been so generous with us. He's paying for the villa in Italy. Your father's retirement depends on this." My chest tightened. "So you're choosing him over your daughter?" She looked away. "I'm choosing stability. You should try it sometime instead of burning bridges." I left without another word. The betrayal felt like falling through ice. My own mother had a price tag and Reed had paid it. I met Troy at a coffee shop downtown. We'd been friends since college, back when he worked part-time at the city records office. Now he was senior clerk. "I need a favor," I said, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside was the property address. He raised an eyebrow. "This is the Whitaker flagship." He nodded. "Find me the original deed." Took him 3 days. When he called, his voice was excited. "Cora, you're not going to believe this. The property was never transferred. It's still registered under your maiden name from before the marriage. Legally, you're the sole owner." Felt my pulse quicken. Reed and my father had made one critical mistake. They'd been so focused on taking my shares that they forgot to check who actually owned the land beneath their golden empire. Reed's new girlfriend, Misty, was an influencer with 2 million followers and zero self-awareness. She posted a video tour of my old office, mocking my boring furniture and outdated taste. Her followers loved it. I watched the video 3 times not because it hurt but because I noticed something. In the background, behind her perfectly filtered face, was the office safe. The one Reed had never been able to open because I'd changed the combination before I left. Misty had accidentally given me proof that Reed was using my private office as his own. Better yet, she'd documented that the safe was still there, still locked, still full of secrets he didn't know existed. I screenshot every frame and sent them to my lawyer with a simple message. Evidence for the inspection order. The entry and inspection order arrived at the hotel on a Tuesday morning. I walked through the lobby with 4 auditors and 2 lawyers. Employees stared. Reed came running from the executive floor. His face red. "You can't just walk in here." My lawyer handed him the court order. "Actually, she can. She owns the property. This is a legally mandated inspection." The look on Reed's face was worth every sleepless night I'd suffered. He tried to block my path to the office. Security started toward us, but I calmly showed them the deed. Their loyalty shifted in real time. One guard even held the elevator door open for me. Reed followed us up, yelling about lawsuits and revenge, but his voice cracked. He was scared. He should be. The safe combination was my grandmother's birthday, the woman who taught me that power meant ownership, not pretty words. Inside weren't jewels or cash. Inside were the original designs and patents for the hotel's proprietary technology. The booking system, the room automation software, the customer database architecture. Everything Reed had been selling to competitors as his own innovations. Everything he'd built his reputation on. I'd created them during those 20-hour days, filed them under my name, and locked them away. My lawyer photographed every document. "This is intellectual property theft," she said quietly. Reed's face went gray. "Cora, wait. We can talk about this." But I was done talking. I was finally taking action. I closed the safe and smiled. "See you in court, Reed." Reed tried to fire my most loyal staff the next day. His mistake. I'd already reached out to them privately, offering positions at a new project I was building. When his termination emails went out, half the hotel's staff walked out within an hour. The head of housekeeping, the IT director, the night manager, the lead concierge. All the people who actually made the hotel function, they all chose me. Reed called my phone 17 times. I answered the 18th. "You're destroying everything we built," he screamed. Corrected him calmly. "Everything I built, Reed. You just stood in the photos." The lobby was chaos. Guests complained. Systems crashed. The perfectly oiled machine I'd created was grinding to a halt, and Reed had no idea how to fix it because he'd never learned how anything actually worked. With half the staff gone and the property deed in question, Whitaker International's stock price began to drop. First 5%, then 10, then 20. Investors started calling emergency meetings. Reed's phone rang constantly. He finally called me at midnight and I let it go to voicemail. His message was desperate. "You're ruining our future. Everything we worked for. Why are you being so vindictive?" I played it for my lawyer over coffee. She shook her head. "He still doesn't get it." I replied to his voicemail with a text message. "No, Reed. I'm not ruining our future. I'm reclaiming mine." The next morning, 3 major investors pulled their funding. The golden boy was tarnishing in real time, and Wall Street was watching. My mother called on a Thursday afternoon. I almost didn't answer. "Cora, please." Reed stopped paying for the villa. "We're going to lose it." Her voice was thick with tears, but I felt nothing. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you chose his money over your daughter." She sobbed harder. "I'm begging you. Be the bigger person. Fix this." I stared at the phone, remembering how she wouldn't let me into her house. "Mom, being the bigger person is what let people walk all over me for 10 years. I'm done being big. Maybe you should try being a better mother." I hung up before she could respond. My hands shook, but not from guilt. From relief. I was finally putting myself first, and it felt like breathing after being underwater. The auditors found something even I hadn't expected. Reed hadn't been paying corporate taxes for 3 years. He'd been funneling that money into personal accounts, buying luxury cars, designer watches, and eventually a private jet for Misty. The golden boy of the business world was a tax evader. My lawyer laid out the documents across her desk. This is federal. The IRS will be very interested. Felt dizzy. How much? She showed me the number. My stomach dropped. He owes millions. She nodded. And since the company is still partially in your name from the marriage, they might come after you too. Unless you cooperate. I understood immediately. I wasn't just taking Reed down. I was protecting myself from his criminal stupidity. I signed the cooperation agreement without hesitation. I didn't leak the tax story. I didn't have to. Misty posted a video 2 days later showing off her private jet, bragging about Reed's generosity and success. She gave a complete tour, showing the registration numbers, the custom interior, everything. Within 24 hours, the IRS flagged the post. Automated systems tracked luxury purchases. Her own vanity became the evidence. News outlets picked up the story by morning. Hotel mogul under investigation for tax evasion. Reed's face was on every business channel. My phone buzzed with messages from old colleagues. Did you know? They asked. I replied honestly. I'm as shocked as you are. The lie tasted sweet. Watching his empire crumble from his own arrogance tasted even sweeter. Karma wasn't just real. Had 2 million followers and an iPhone. Reed tried to host a second gala to reassure investors and prove everything was fine. He spent $50,000 on champagne and caviar. He hired a live band. He printed embossed invitations. Only 3 people showed up. A junior reporter from a lifestyle blog, an elderly couple who thought it was a public event, and Misty's mother. The grand ballroom I designed sat empty except for waiters standing awkwardly with trays of expensive food nobody wanted. The reporter posted photos. The empty chairs went viral. Comments flooded in. When even your own investors ghost you. This is what failure looks like in real time. Reed's reputation wasn't just damaged. It was obliterated. The industry knew the real power had left the building, and they'd followed it right out the door. Reed showed up at my modest apartment on a Saturday night. I downsized to a simple 1-bedroom while I rebuilt. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled shirt, desperate eyes. Cora, please. The divorce was a mistake. I was having a midlife crisis. We can fix this. He tried to touch my face. I stepped back. You think I'd take you back? He dropped to his knees. I was stupid. Misty means nothing. You were always the smart one, the real one. I need you. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Say that again. Especially the part about Misty meaning nothing. He did, like an idiot, begging and confessing to using her for publicity. When he left, I sent the entire video to Misty with a simple message. Thought you should know what your boyfriend really thinks. Misty went nuclear. She started a TikTok live at 2 in the morning, crying and screaming. 2 million followers watched in real time as she exposed everything. Reed's lies about his education, his failed business ventures before he met me, even the fact that he'd never actually graduated from business school. He told everyone he had an MBA from Princeton, she sobbed into the camera. He dropped out sophomore year. Everything is fake. I gave up brand deals for a fraud. The comments exploded. News outlets screen recorded the entire breakdown. By morning, #Reed Whitaker exposed was trending nationally. My lawyer called laughing. You didn't even have to do anything. He destroyed himself. I sipped my coffee and smiled. The best revenge is letting them self-destruct. The Italian villa was repossessed 3 weeks later. My parents were forced to move into a tiny motel off the highway. My father tried calling me from the motel parking lot. I watched the phone ring and didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Cora, we're family. Please. We made mistakes, but we're your parents. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. My mother sent a text. How can you be so cruel? I blocked her number. Family was supposed to protect you, not sell you for a retirement villa. They'd made their choice. Now they could live with the consequences. I changed my phone number that afternoon and didn't give it to anyone except my lawyer and Troy. The past needed to stay buried. I had an empire to build. Whitaker International officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on a cold November morning. Reed thought he'd negotiate a settlement and walk away with something. He didn't understand corporate law. I was listed as the primary secured creditor because of the property deed and the intellectual property theft. That meant I got paid first. That meant I got everything. The judge explained it to him slowly, like talking to a child. Mr. Whitaker, you owe Ms. Whitaker more than the company is worth. She owns the land. She owns the patents. You essentially own debt. Reed's lawyer tried to argue. The judge cut him off. This case is straightforward. Ms. Whitaker is the victim of theft and fraud. She's entitled to full restitution. Reed's face went pale. But I'll have nothing. The judge shrugged. Perhaps you should have thought of that before committing crimes. We met at the courthouse for the final settlement. Reed and my father sat across from me looking like ghosts. I slid an envelope across the table. Inside was the official notice of foreclosure for the flagship hotel. Reed opened it with shaking hands. The color drained from his face. You're foreclosing. I nodded calmly. The property is mine. Your lease agreement was tied to the corporate entity, which no longer exists. I'm not renewing. My father finally spoke, his voice hollow. Cora, you can't do this. I looked at the man who'd thrown me out of my own gala. I'm not just a disgruntled ex-wife, Dad. I'm your landlord now. And I'm evicting you both. Their faces went completely white. My lawyer stood. We're done here. I walked out while they sat frozen, finally understanding that I wasn't just fighting back. I'd already won. My father came to my new office building a week later. Security called to ask if they should let him up. Almost said no. But curiosity won. He sat across from my desk looking 20 years older. I was manipulated, he said quietly. Reed convinced me you were holding the company back. I see now that I was wrong. I didn't soften. You threw me out in front of 200 people, Dad. You chose him over me. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I know. I'm sorry. I handed him a business card. This is a temp agency. They're hiring. He stared at it. You can't be serious. I met his eyes. You always said I was too ambitious. Now you can see what real work looks like. Don't contact me again. Security escorted him out. I didn't cry. I'd spent all my tears already. The rebranding happened on a bright January morning. I stood in front of the flagship hotel with contractors and designers. The Whitaker International sign came down piece by piece. In its place, we installed something better. Monroe Heritage Hotels, named after my grandmother who'd protected me and believed in me when no one else did. She'd passed away 5 years ago, but she'd left me a small inheritance that I'd used to start the original business. This was her legacy too. Employees gathered in the lobby to watch. When the new sign lit up, they cheered. Some of them cried. This wasn't just a rebranding. It was a resurrection. I was taking back what I'd built and honoring the woman who taught me that I didn't need anyone's permission to be powerful. The Whitaker name was dead. Monroe was eternal. Reed's sentencing happened in March. Tax evasion and corporate fraud meant prison time, but his lawyers negotiated it down to community service and massive fines. 2,000 hours of service. I made sure I was there the day he started. He wore an orange vest and carried a trash picker, cleaning the sidewalks outside one of my new hotels. He saw me watching from the lobby window. Eyes met. He looked away first. Misty had already moved on, dating a younger influencer with actual money. My parents were working retail jobs. Reed was picking up garbage. And I was standing in a hotel lobby that I owned completely, watching karma take out the trash. Justice wasn't always instant, but it was thorough. My mother tried one last time. She applied to work as a consultant for Monroe Heritage Hotels, submitting a resume full of exaggerations. My HR director brought it to me, uncertain. Should I interview her? I read through the lies, marketing expert, strategic advisor, and felt nothing. I drafted a formal rejection letter. Dear Mrs. Whitaker, thank you for your interest in Monroe Heritage Hotels. Unfortunately, we cannot offer you a position due to your lack of loyalty and professional ethics. We require employees who value integrity. Best regards, Cora Monroe, CEO. I signed it and sealed the envelope myself. My HR director looked uncomfortable. Are you sure? He nodded. Some bridges need to stay burned. The letter was sent certified mail. She never responded. But some people didn't deserve second chances. They deserved exactly what they'd given. Nothing. I stood on the rooftop of the flagship hotel 6 months after everything fell apart and came back together. The city sprawled beneath me, full of lights and possibilities. In my hands were blueprints for 5 new locations: Seattle, Boston, Austin, Denver, and Portland. Monroe Heritage was expanding. I wasn't looking backward anymore. The past had taught me everything I needed to know about trust, power, and self-worth. I wasn't someone's wife. I wasn't someone's disappointing daughter. I was the CEO of my own empire, built on my own terms, carrying my grandmother's name into the future. The wind picked up, scattering the blueprints across the rooftop table. I gathered them carefully, smiling. There was work to do. There was always work to do. But now, finally, I was working for myself. And that made all the difference.